Welcome, crypto enthusiasts, to the Independent Reserve Podcast.
Well done.
Episode 11 of the Independent Reserve Podcast. Back with a very special guest today, Lisa Wade, CEO of DigitalX, and Jonathan Toro, a very battered and bruised Jonathan Toro today. Let's start with that, J2. How's that cast going?
The right arm is in a cast for a week now from an unfortunate snowboarding accident in Queenstown last week. I was dodging and weaving and unfortunately
Not well enough.
put down my right arm and fractured my radius. So this week has been learning how to be ambidextrous and how to do very usual tasks with my left hand. It's been tricky.
Absolutely. Oh, well, glad you're safe and sound and back at home. Lisa, big news. Big news for you, I guess, is the Bitcoin ETF launch successfully on the 12th of July, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Great timing because it's been up only since that time.
That's what we were
You made that
hoping. I mean, obviously, you never know when these things are going to land, and we spent a really long time working on it. So to have the market rally from that moment, especially good for me because the way it all worked out in the end, I had to seed it with my self-managed super, and that was done a couple of days before we launched on the ASX. So literally via a happy accident, I think I may have hit the low, and it wasn't that much of my self-managed super, but enough to make me sort of feel aligned to the success of the product, that's for sure.
Awesome. So let's jump into the work DigitalX is doing with the ETF, because obviously, it's been, I guess, the success of the ETFs in the US meant there's, I guess, some demand for that in Australia, and you guys are leading the charge on that. So perhaps you could tell us the story about how it all came to be.
Oh, well, it was really interesting actually, because we are, I think, the only listed company in Australia with Bitcoin on our balance sheet. And I originally set out, we had two other fund products, a wholesale Bitcoin ETF, a wholesale Bitcoin fund, got ETFs on the brain, and a crypto fund. And I really wanted to look to see if we could use our products to solve what I heard was a liquidity problem, because I felt that ETFs were super important in Australia. And I felt that as with the trading capability we had in the business, that we could help facilitate the liquidity in the ETFs and solve for some collateral issues that we were hearing about. And then as it turned out, 2022 happened, and a lot of the ETFs that were listed fell over, and that led to a completely different journey, and one that I'm super excited about. It was almost an industry collaboration, because ZeroCap made the introduction to 3iQ. 3iQ really wanted to have another attempt at Australia, and I felt very, very, very strongly that the successful attempt would be on the Australian Stock Exchange. And then just via another happy accident, we found K2 and partnered with them at 3iQ to bring this to life, which really was a collaborative effort.
Yes, a lot of work's gone on then behind the scenes and across the board to make it happen.
For a very long time.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Lisa, you've been around the industry for a long time. I think you're very well known in the crypto industry in particular, but also through TradFi. I was having a sneaky look on your LinkedIn. I know you're did all kinds of trading before, derivatives, arbitrage, equities. Yep. Yeah, you've traded plenty. 30
years, yeah. I started out as an index arb and program trader, and strangely, my career has always been about tech, but just in an accidental way. And when I started trading, all the traders were keying in all the trades on the ASX, and then I'd get a printout in the morning and have to rekey all of our positions and type them in. And I really wanted to trade, and I didn't want to be the trader's assistant. And I said to my boss, well, how come if they're typing into the ASX, why do I get a printout? Why can't I get those straight into that computer there? And that led to a journey of me sitting with Peter Dunai, who owned Equinet, which became Iris, and he did, I sat next to him, and sort of I was the, what I do is the finance person, I guess, and he was the tech person of explaining what I needed. And that led to us using and uploading the first DD links from the ASX before Bloomberg was even doing it, before Reuters were even doing it. And that meant I didn't have to type every morning, and then I had more time, and so my boss let me trade. So I've been trading for a very long time, and then the whole way through my career, I've just used tech to make that more efficient and really to correct my typos, because I'm not a very good typer.
So you've been right at the edge the whole time, right?
Yeah. And I didn't even realize. Yeah, I didn't even realize. Like when I was trading in London, that kit that we built of understanding how to bring the DDE links into the spreadsheet. In those days, you had to type the formula. There was no actual, API, which they have now. So you had to know the formula to code in the link, which was just another Excel formula in the end, to draw the link in. And I was the only one that knew how to do it at what is now Citigroup London. And so I traded the ADR and the DLC book, which was the largest trading book in the whole of the UK and Europe. Just because I knew how to work a spreadsheet and it would calculate the FX. And so, it's just always been part of what I do.
There's probably no accident then you found yourself in the digital asset space. I know you've got DigitalX has the real world tokenization fund, which I guess is kind of almost like a natural extension of some of that work in the early days of tokenizing now these things to make everything more efficient.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And my passion for that really came from my impact investing and my community investment background when I was at Bendigo Bank. And everyone's got their sort of Bitcoin OG story, I guess. And I was working on community energy models. We were talking about the RARI ETF. We were building that to create the theory, which is now quite common, which is like the core and the satellite portfolio construction. And I was building these renewable energy, community energy models, solar for schools, all these things that we wanted to put into the super fund. And I couldn't work out a way to get the back office to not be super onerous. And we had all these great algorithms and everything. And I was sitting with a colleague from Bendigo Bank and as you do on a Friday afternoon at Palings, and he was friends with a girl from Macquarie Bank who was having lunch with American Express and MasterCard, I think it was. And of course, the conversation lent itself towards Bitcoin. And I made the smart ass comment that, there's only 21 million Bitcoin ever going to be issued. So it's really good. All my friends are punting it, but that's all it will ever be. And the guy from MX looked at me and goes, "You do know that it's infinitely divisible, don't you?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Yeah, you talk about, democratization and fractionalization. Bitcoin is the ultimate tool for that." And I was like, "What?" And I went back and, really saw it in a different light. And that's how I became so passionate about real world asset tokenization, because it was really quite clear with all of the issues that we're having that if we could rework what was happening in Bitcoin into the future, then we could actually fractionalize and democratize these community investments in a different way. And that's kind of how it all started. And I won't say it's been an easy journey. It's most definitely been a long journey with all of the work and the experiments. And I think I said a few months ago, we're never doing another POC again. I'm over it. No POCs, no pilots. We're just going live on everything.
Yeah, right.
Because it's been a very long time.
Right. So how long, so sort of roughly when was that sort of realization?
I want to say that was 2011, like it was way back when.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was, well before I was a yoga teacher, well before all of the things.
Yoga teacher, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's definitely our next line of questioning. How long have you been doing that for?
At least 10 years. Or maybe it was around the same time. Maybe I'm overstating my OG status.
For the yoga ring or the?
For the Bitcoin, but who knows? No one ever remembers the dates, right? It was a very long time ago. And I've been a yoga teacher for 11 years now. And so I've done yoga every single day in some shape or form for over 10 years and coming up on 11 in August, which is pretty much where we are now. So it's been quite the journey.
So I've been teaching that as well, so not just for your own, but helping with others? I
haven't been teaching in this role just because I've been so busy, but even at National Australia Bank I was teaching, and some of the projects that we got through at National Australia Bank, like people would say, "Oh, you're going to go see this guy and he's from credit and he's never going to let that idea through," because the other side to the CBDC and Project Atom, which was my project, was the syndicated loan, which is what I really wanted to do. And what they didn't realise is during COVID, I ran a meditation that was open to the entire bank. For 10 minutes every morning, we would talk for 5, meditate for 5, and hear each other out. It was like a connection with everybody. And I'd walk into a meeting and one of the guys from my meditation class would be the mean guy from credit. They'd be like, "Lisa, how are you?" Yeah, sure. Yeah, whatever she wants to do, we'll give it a go. I trust her. And it was just a game changer, like the different types of relationships you could form. And
I feel like we need a meditation class and perhaps a yoga class here at IR.
Oh, absolutely. Well, there was a poster downstairs, by the way, for yoga in your building, so get all over it. And
so leading a revolution through technological revolution and mindfulness.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's a financial revolution,
Financial
and
revolution.
wellness is, about finance.
How cool.
Yeah.
JT, how's your meditation practice going?
It's been great over the last couple of weeks. Markets are going up. It makes meditating much easier.
Yeah. Funny how that works. So with the outside of meditation, it's more about you than Lisa. So you're, we know actually, because at NAB, that's what your job was. You were leading the digital innovation, not renovation, digital innovation, and the
sustainability.
meditation, sustainability.
Yeah, and NAB Pride as well. So I wore
lovely.
a few hats at NAB.
Yeah, you're doing lots of things, and doing the meditation courses and yoga courses at NAB.
Yep. Yeah, that wasn't, obviously I didn't get paid to do most of that, but.
All right, so when you're not doing all that, there's probably more to you. So outside of work, what more are you doing, I guess, in your personal life, just in terms of things that you like to keep you busy when you're not, obviously?
Oh, well, I have been known to be on my paddleboard out at Balmoral Beach, which is, that was another COVID change. I wanted to see what it was. I was going down to the beach swimming every morning because I was quite stressed, and it's not easy inside of banks doing the things that we were doing back in those days, and I had a lot of stress. So I started swimming in the mornings, and then decided, what would it be like if I actually lived down here? So I rented a place down at the beach, and lo and behold, the lockdowns happened. So I considered myself winning lockdown, bought a paddleboard and an e-bike, and you'll often see me out on my paddleboard, falling off a lot. There's lots of, you guys are both injured here today. Yeah, most people can't see. The broken arm was pointed out, but there's also some mismatching shoes and a broken toe down there. I think there's, I have my fair share of injuries.
The fashion police would be busy today.
Yeah.
They would. Luckily there's a table so that people can't see that I'm also wearing one thumb and one shoe. The Frank Green bottles, you've got to watch out for them.
Absolutely, they're dangerous. Yeah, and I will share, because people don't often share, especially women, about getting older and the health challenges that we face. And, I thought putting on weight was just part of getting older, and sort of accepted it as my way of being. And then I shockingly weighed myself, and I just almost had a nervous breakdown. And then I was like, I really have to it just didn't feel right, even though it's sort of like, I'm just getting older, and I was doing the yoga every day, so I felt strong and I was fit and all of that. And so I've recently lost nearly 25 kilos doing Weight Watchers. So that's been a bit of a life-changing effort.
Is that mostly because you're active, so it was mostly maybe a dietary change as well?
It's Weight Watchers is a combo of everything. You get points every day, and you can I started off very strictly in the beginning. You have to exercise for 70 minutes a day on average over the week, which is a lot. Like even when you go to the gym, you're high-fiving yourself. It's like, shit, I've got another 15 minutes to go to get there. And then the food points has been really interesting, because things that you consider to be not that bad, and as I got older, the weight crept up. And interestingly, because I felt very healthy, my dad's a naturopath, I try and do everything in moderation. And when you go through and analyze everything, my real downfall was flight lounges, and all the crappy food and the free bubbles. We all fall prey to that. And then the free cheese on the plane, and then even if you have to pay for it, you still want it because it's on the plane. And then chocolate milkshakes are like 3 days worth of food. I mean, that's devastating and life-changing. But then with Weight Watchers, I learned how to do heaps of hacks, and I can bootstrap a chocolate milkshake that doesn't taste too bad for only 2 points these days, not 75.
Nice.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Well done.
1 more kilo to go, so hopefully that will happen this week.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
No time. Well, now that you're healthy and strong, perfect time to take on JT for an arm wrestle. So maybe we can see that later.
Well, I fancy my chances, and I'm actually left-handed, so it might not be a fair fight.
All right. Wow, that's.
I feel really boring. You told me Rob talks about being a DJ and everything like that. I should have a better story, but.
That's pretty cool. He wasn't a meditation expert. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How so as you've gone through this journey, how's your focus changed in sort of applying, I guess, a little bit more of a strict policy in your life to then sort of also what you've achieved in business, have you found that your clarity and your focus has increased a lot as well?
Yeah, I think another thing that, yes, absolutely. I did a lot of work during COVID. I had a couple of coaches and I did some high performance coaching, and a lot of that was around clarity and focus, and then trying to bring that into business world, and to execute that I use a strategic execution system. It's art plus science, but there's definitely methodologies that you can use, and then personal focus of really, there is just so much, and with this job there is just so much, and I just have to do everything in blocks and just use those focus time blocks. And then there's just that extra weight of responsibility we all have, especially with everything that happened in 2022. It didn't go away. We're a listed company. It was very public, the decimation of the TVL that we had in the funds business. The ETF is a pivot to find product market fit. It's very obvious that there's this huge wave of money going into ETFs in general. Like the first product I did at Bendigo Bank was an ETF because we went to Bendigo Bank to build ETFs because we wanted them to be responsible, and we could see that. And then it was sort of like I don't know what, those come to Jesus moments where it's like we need to have a Bitcoin ETF for the business, otherwise we're not going to have a business, because it was very hard to play that role of the market maker with tax on the balance sheet and all of the things that I wanted to do. And it just became like the obvious play for shareholders to do that, to get the product market fit that we need to be in the space where funds management sits in the world. Because you have like really super savvy people that trade on exchanges, and then you have the crypto curious who may never want to own a crypto wallet, and they aren't eligible for a wholesale fund, which is what we had. So really, working very hard, and I'm so grateful to K2 and 3iQ for the guidance and support, and Holly at K2 with her expertise on, I admired her because when we did the RARI ETF, we had to do a vanilla ETF. The ASX wouldn't allow. It was only passive funds. We had to really compromise on the stocks that went into it. At one point in time, we had 11 super funds working on it, and we had it came down to Woolworths and Harvey Norman, and I said, well, what if we just took both of those out? And then we got it done. And over the years, the ASX has allowed more active products, and Holly really pioneered that. So we had her pioneering and engaging with the ASX and helping, and then obviously the expertise of 3iQ globally. You can say a lot about all of the applications with the ASX, but it was something like 96 pages long with all of the layers of service providers and due diligence that we did. So there was a lot of work.
Yeah, awesome. So to the extent that you can, what can you sort of share about some of the conversations you're having with some of the more sort of institutional buyers and potentially the super funds and those types of groups? They shown some interest or have some conversations with you about or shown some interest in the ETF? Yeah,
look, I think the ETF was a little bit of a game changer for the conversations that we can have, and I think that we were already on a number of platforms, and I think for us it's really talking to advisors, and I think solving for advice and advisors being able to talk about the Bitcoin ETF really is where we need to crack the code. And then really excitingly, we are having some conversations with some institutions who are seeing the alpha, especially more sort of active institutions. And then, we do have inquiries from superannuation funds, and that's a 5-year game. It always has been, always will be. You've got to go through the asset consultants, and it's up to us to do the work. You've got to get to the critical mass so that you're big enough so that even if they do approve you, they can invest. So there's a lot of work involved, and really, it was such an exciting moment ringing the bell at the ASX, and then, the representatives, the CEO of the ASX came. I mean, that was for me just unbelievable. And then she was really interested in Bitcoin and really interested in that conversation. And you can say what you want about what happened with the chess project, but they're still very into our industry and our sector. They're just trying to find their product market fit, right? And that sort of, was a great moment. And then they all were saying, now the work begins, and really now the work begins because we've got to get out there and sell it. You can only do so many meetings per week. And it's a tailwind tailwinds, the price rallying now, but what keeps me awake at night is I want as many people to get in before the price rallies. Because I do passionately believe it's, a generational wealth creation opportunity across the continuum of crypto. We've got the crypto top 20 fund, if you like, and it's top 20, but it's also, we curate that portfolio using old portfolio management techniques that were developed from when I managed money for the Smorgans through to Bendigo Bank through to in my other funds that I've started, and it's now DigitalX nicknamed the Universal Scoring Matrix, and we rank and rate and measure all the different crypto for all of the individual characteristics. We do the same thing with real world asset tokenization, so we can see the industry as a whole and be taken seriously as investment managers and curate that portfolio. And in my personal life and things that won't necessarily go into the fund, I really do think that there are some altcoins that are building Web3 infrastructure that is the absolute future, like the financial rails of the future, and I'm very passionate about that and bringing that to the world. And I think Bitcoin's paving the way for everybody, but there are lots of great entrepreneurs in Web3 that have chosen the path of ICOs to fund their businesses. Would I want to step into the argument whether they're securities? The CFTC says everything's regulated, get over it. So support these entrepreneurs rather than define them as whether it's a security or not, who cares? Get it all above board and support the entrepreneurs, because it's actually a viable capital pathway for entrepreneurs to build the rails of the future.
Amen.
Yeah,
and who does an ETF suit best? Who do you think?
Well, believe it or not, I'm really not really qualified to say. So I've always been a wholesale investor, and from my point of view, it wasn't build it and they'll come. What ETFs do is they democratize access to specialized portfolio management services, and our ETF is high risk. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. All crypto is high risk. Real world assets, different story, and we can talk about that in another light. However, what the ETF does, it allows people to, if they want to put that extra risk in their portfolio, because their risk reward, the Sharpe ratios are higher, there is a benefit. If they want to have that sleeve in their portfolio, the ETF allows that access. And what we were very passionate about doing was creating that access in a really safe way and a direct beneficial ownership. So it's an entitlement trust. Basically, you own the fraction of the Bitcoin on whatever the fraction is that day. And I'm still trying to work out the maths on the fraction every day, because it's all around, the maths inside of trying to, the way that fraction is with the creation units and all of that. And that is a very complicated formula. But whatever the creation unit fraction is that day, then you basically get that entitlement to the actual Bitcoin. And I was so passionate about bringing that. There was no compromise. We didn't want to do a feeder fund. We didn't want to do anything. That was all on the table. We had all the relationships to do that, and I fought tooth and nail to get that direct access, because I believe that's what puts the quality in the portfolio, not some, opaque look through.
That's pretty cool, actually. And for anyone who really gets Bitcoin, they know that's a really important element to it, right? And that's why you push for it.
Well, I believe we should just all own it, right? Because it's actually, my whole way I see the world has changed, because it's a fractional ownership of financial infrastructure. Previously, the only thing I could do was buy bank shares and buy every bank in the world shares. Now, what can I do? I can actually buy, in tokens in these networks and this infrastructure. And yes, not all crypto is created equal, and we can talk about all the differences between all of the networks. But the reality is, and I'll pick on Apple because they're so big they won't notice, that when I double click on my Apple phone, and
Tim Cook listens to this podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure. Tim Cook, hi. I double click on the bus. Apple gets 0.15% of that. The banks are absorbing it right now. If I use my Solana phone in a perfect world, then that double click will go to a Solana network validator. And I didn't really get that I didn't even really get the Solana phone until I bought one. And then all of a sudden I was like, I just bought one because I felt like it was my job. Like we've got Solana in the portfolio, we're Solana bulls, we're overweight, all of the things. I felt like it was my job because, it really was in the darkest hour of the market. And then I just got it in a whole new way. And I think that's the beauty of crypto. I think we can all start off as one thing and end up completely as another. And I would say my journey really started, I didn't really take Bitcoin seriously, as I said. I'll own that. My friends were trading it up in Byron and making heaps of money, and I just thought, like, they were making heaps of money. I just thought it was like weekend couch punting. I was doing all of that. And then, real world asset tokenization captured my heart and mind. And then going to DigitalX and, having the Bitcoin on the balance sheet and having the products and really bringing my passion for investment into the portfolio management of that, bringing in the geeky, oh, wow, I can still manage this portfolio the same way I can manage an equities portfolio. Yeah. I can actually use the universal scoring matrix to actually compare a real world asset token to Bitcoin, and I can score them all relatively. To me, that's what's really ignited my overall passion and I guess the drive of the DigitalX strategy to bring fund products to life to generate wealth, because it's a wealth creation moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a generation.
That's incredible. So let's go back to when you first were getting into Bitcoin or first kind of becoming its awareness. I mean, did you ever sort of think, well, one day I'm going to be running Australia's first ETF? Or could it even be happening? I mean, would you have thought it was even possible back when you started?
No, I think because the ETF was, I think people use the term happy accident. And then it was sort of like never the path that we were 100% going to choose. And there's two things. It's like, if you want to make God laugh, I get criticised saying, tell him your plans, tell her your plans. And then there was just this, moment when it was really obvious that that was what we had to do.
Right.
And it sort of all came together, and it was, a lot of luck involved, I would say. And, you can read all the chat online.
It's so often, you speak to people who are critical of digital assets and critical of Bitcoin and all the milestones that they said would never happen have now kind of already come and happened, yet they're still, so they're almost running out of excuses to some element of the inevitability of Bitcoin as being a real store of wealth, and also just the crypto just generally being a replacement, a 2.0 in the infrastructure for a lot of the financial plumbing of financial markets. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's happening right now, and your fund's a great example of this. It's like the copper network's being pulled up and replaced with fiber optic.
Yeah, and you can see it happening.
I mean? People still saying, "Oh, no, I don't know about this fiber optic stuff." You know what I mean?
Around the same time as when I first started, I believed that we needed to do weekly contact, and so we started a weekly note just for our investors and collating all the news. And I created a list called the Shift List, which I think there's other people that are using that title, but I literally made it up for myself in the darkest hour because I genuinely believed in this shift to the Web3 financial rails. And then, it takes so much resilience in crypto because the volatility is eye-bleeding. And in the dark times, it's really hard to stay as a believer. And you see it, so many people, walk away. And I really started the Shift List to convince myself of, is this shift really happening? Because it's not just about Bitcoin, it's like financial infrastructure, right? And it didn't even matter, like the market, in the darkest hours, there would still be 3 to 4 news stories of champion entrepreneurs launching a project, lots of proof of concepts and pilots, but all of that work was still going on, and you can really see that, all of the that work is, creating these rails and creating that new financial world. And I passionately believe that, I don't even want to say it's happening. I want to say it's happened, and lots of people just don't realize yet, because if you look at how I seeded the Bitcoin ETF, I literally had to, and I won't say the bank because I want to say something bad here. So I literally had to walk down to my bank physically. It wasn't NAB, I love NAB. I walked down to my bank physically, withdraw the money from my bank account. It needed to be in US dollars for various different technical reasons. I had to switch into US dollars.
Yeah.
The Aussie was trading at 68.5. I got set at 64.8. I got absolutely shafted on the FX rate. I was so angry. If I wasn't doing it for DigitalX shareholders, I would have walked out of there. Like, it was just highway robbery. So I zipped it, moved the money across, and anyone who's ever done a transaction on chain, and the fact that we've tokenized funds and we have a tokenized fund, and all I would have had to have done would be to sit at my desk with my Fireblocks, in this case wallet, and approved a transaction, and it would have been done atomically. Anyone who's done that, once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the shift I'm talking about. But we're still having to, do it the old way, even for, new ideas and new products.
More or less extorted on the way out of it. Yeah, it's true though. Once you sort of see it for yourself, you go, oh, this is what these people have been talking about. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the thing that everyone was going on about. Until people see it, they don't get it.
Well, yeah, and the yields you're getting from staking is really validation of actual transactions. Like, you are validating a transaction that's happening, which is me double clicking on the bus. That is a human being getting that money, or a validator getting that money, run by human beings, not Apple or a bank or the existing financial rails. And once now I can see that I'm obviously very driven towards.
And the CrowdStrike incident we had last Friday, a perfect example, right? Everything went down because one business.
Oh, look, I mean, I guess my brain works differently about that. Have you ever had an Apple TV that gets out of date? Because as the apps get more and more powerful, the CPUs can't run the
software updates.
Yeah, so I think there's a partnership there of, if you're going to use really advanced technologies, touch wood, your team has the right kit. And you're not running off 1970s computers with, 2024 technology. But yeah, no doubt that was a shit show. And I just felt really sorry for them with the lawsuits. And I guess they caused a global melt up for Bitcoin. We all of us sort of liked it because it, really drove home the decentralization narrative, if you like. The carnage that it caused, I guess someone's got to pay. But being someone who also, we still have the sell my shares business, and we're still dependent on TradFi rails and in that business, and the problems that can occur. And
and definitely, I just meant definitely about the security aspect and the uptime aspect, and TikTok, next block kind of thing. It just didn't.
Oh, it's terrifying. Yeah, absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
And Lee, before you mentioned milestones, Lisa, what would you like to achieve over the next 12 months, or what are you thinking about the next 12 months?
I think it's pretty public that because we're listed, that we need to get to critical mass as a business. So my first milestone is really getting to that 100 million in any product. I don't care, pick a card, any card. We're really going to be going hard at launching. We've renamed the Dart to Rewax. Got to call it, when I tried to be really clever with digital asset reference token from Mika. I thought everyone would get art and it would be very cool, but no one is. So blame the name and rename it and move on.
That no one's cool.
Yeah. and so Rewax will be launched in Singapore, and we'll try a new market, as well as the Bitcoin ETF. And then I think the milestones for us really are, I'm so proud of the conversations that we're having this week. And then, for shareholders, that needs to be converted into what I call TVL, what you call TVL. And, I think that it's a slow grind. We've got to work hard. But that's our biggest milestone, and where I'm really looking to drive the business forward.
What's the time? What's the roadmap look like? What do you think? What do you think you need to do to make those things kind of come along?
Oh, look, it's really about our distribution strategy and getting out there and talking to people. And so, thank you for having me on this podcast, because I think that so much of what we do, because we are listed, it's hard for me to speak about lots of things. And then, we had to sort of live through not being the first ASX ETF. With probably, the market could see we had a considerable lead because it was public that we lodged in January. I think that, just kicking those goals. Well, and talking to people and, really, sorry, I'm getting old. I lost my thread a little bit, but really just getting out there and talking to people now and bringing it home. I think we sort of lay low in the bunker for a while, and it's time to get out there.
No, thank you for coming along. So this week, the Blockchain APAC is having the top 50 list.
Yes.
So I was going to say, well, two questions. One, who do you think will be number one, and how far down that list in the top 10 will you be?
Oh, I don't expect to be in the list at all. And I think that list will be lots of politicians and, I think Jim Chalmers was number 3. So he's the treasurer. I don't think that, I'll be in the list at all. I'm looking forward to going and hanging out with everybody and, spending time with all my friends because, at the end of the day, this industry is quite special in, all the friendships that I've developed, and I'm very grateful for those and all of the support in the industry, especially being on the board of Blockchain Australia. So just looking forward to having a fun night, and I'm flying out on Friday morning to go to a yoga retreat.
Oh, right.
So I'm really looking forward to that and having a weekend up in the Gold Coast with my best friend, and something that we do every year in a really terrible, it's like the Theosophical Society or something, and you sleep on the beds that the nuns sleep on with a sleeping bag and no heating. And it's very cold because it's in the mountains. So I'm super looking forward to that and just chilling out.
So you're doing the fifth digital asset dinner on
Thursday night?
Friday.
Yeah.
How early on Friday morning?
No. I'm only getting picked up at 7:20. That's late for me. Yeah, usually I get picked. Get picked up at I spend a lot of time in Perth because that's our head office, and I spend a lot of time on getting picked up at 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. depending.
And it sounds like there'll be some swimming and paddleboarding before 7:20.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Friday morning I'll be all over it.
So you're not going to bed the night before, so you'll be then you'll be nice and tired for when you get up on the nuns' beds and it's cold.
Look, I'm not going to say anything. Whatever happens after midnight, I think there's a golden rule, isn't there? But I will be definitely wanting to show up to my yoga retreat as the yogi that I am, and also Weight Watchers. It's a little bit of a fool's errand to drink too much, so. You only sort of make that mistake once or twice, and then, literally I'm a lightweight.
This week, if we go back to the ETF, it looks like there's some Ethereum ETFs approved, and we'll get the list of those ETFs over the next day or so. Any thoughts? Well, whether this might be something for Australia as well, and.
Oh, 1000%. I do think that when we announced, and anyway, this will be public, so I'm happy to say it publicly, that when the time is right, we will 100% go as hard and fast as we can with ETH, because as I said, I'm passionate about generating this alpha in people's portfolios, having 5 to 10% in digital assets, and ETH plus Bitcoin plus real asset tokens, whatever form you consider, increases the Sharpe ratio. You need both to super juice that portfolio. So we'll go hard and fast on anything we can, and even Sol, because Sol's part of our portfolio. We have been believers in Sol for a long time, and then my dream would be to promote and work with ASIC and the ASX to bring other crypto through, and just for people who sort of think about, is an ETF cannibalizing the markets that we're all in? Absolutely not, because we still face off against people and buy the actual crypto. So any trading still happens with exchanges, and we still support Australian exchanges. But as you know, I don't want to get too political, but there are some legislative, geez, that's a mouthful, no matter what you're thinking about regulation, to be able, with the nuances on tax and custody in Australia, to sort that out for everybody, which I'm very passionate about as well. So really just wanting to create and build the ecosystem. And I think the more crypto ETFs we can have, the more follow-on volume there is, the more educated people get. And then, I would never, ever, 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 ever tell anybody in anything other than their personal high-risk trading. But what I can't wait is that all the people that get Bitcoin, Sol, ETH, ETF savvy then look and start to see what this space is doing, and have the altcoins in their portfolio, because the altcoins really are a new way to support entrepreneurs. And I think that's one of the things we wrote in a submission to the government as DigitalX that I see that not many people talk about. Like the altcoins, I've always had like in any fund I've had, there's always been this little part of VC, and the altcoins are the way to support the new generation of entrepreneurs and allow for people to be employed in a different way. And we work a lot with the DFCRC. I had a guy working with me who's a genius, and I was like, well, I can't, like, this isn't working with this investment and that investment, but you know, if it doesn't work out for you, I can offer you a job. I never want a job. The younger generation, he's so smart. He just never wants to work for anybody. He believes in himself, and I believe in backing people who do. And you know, all the altcoins are a really good way of doing that. So I'm looking forward to them taking on a life of their own in a different way. And I would never tell anyone to put it in their, you know, superannuation or, you know, mainstream investment portfolio. That's not what we do. We're all about wealth creation. But my goodness, when you know, I've always been a trader, and there is nothing like trading alts.
I know you haven't given financial advice, but I think the reading between the lines is pin your ears back and fill your boots.
I may have spent a lot of time on the weekend working out what to buy and starting. There's a fear factor too, right? Because even people I know who've believed in alts are sort of getting very gun shy in this rally on what the alts are going to do. But I genuinely believe that, you know, for that part of your speculative part of the portfolio, you know, and what's your downside? Like, I now know all about all these things like DeepIn and all of these like massive infrastructure thematics of the future because I love altcoins.
Can you pick maybe one example that's your favourite right at the moment?
Oh, my favourite. If I had to choose, if I really have to choose, then I would probably go with Render right now. Okay. For no particular reason other than that was the last one that I bought. And then I really like Tia. I know there's people giving them a run for their money, but I think there's room for everybody in that space. And I really like that model. And I think some of the beaten up ones that are a little bit more popular, like Polkadot and things like that, they've made a reappearance in my portfolio. May or may not have made a reappearance in my portfolio.
Right. Yeah. I feel like there's there's so much happening and some good old trusted names. I mean, I'll throw one out, for example, like Link, for example.
Link I love. We've got that in the fund. Like, that's just,
And you think, well, if this is really the digital infrastructure of the next 100 years, interoperability is going to be so important.
Oh, totally. And
believing, have a look, but it's a great.
Oh, we've got it in the fund, and I had the honour of having lunch with Sergey at when he was in Sydney. He even paid. I was like, wow! Not only did I have lunch with him, he paid. And believing what we believe in, real world asset tokenization, and you know, that killer use case that's emerging of pinging the NAV of the funds. And you know, we went from we did an experiment of that. I don't know if anyone remembers. I think it was one of those tree fell in the forest moments 2 years ago on the ASX Symphony, where we pinged our NAV from the fund, and literally that was deemed to be a little bit crazy. And I don't think anyone in my team believed that it was a thing. And now you look, that's possibly the first killer use case and a leapfrog to ETFs. And they're sort of looking like they're front and center to run that infrastructure and sort of be the global go-to for that. Now, will someone give them a run for their money? Then you've got the tokenomics of, you know, will there be a big release? You know, you just don't know what's going to happen because it's sort of very tightly held and there's only a small amount on issue. But I still believe that, so I still own them in my portfolio. And we do have them for full transparency in the crypto fund. Yeah, of which I'm obviously an investor too.
That's some hot tips right there. Hey, before I forget, what is your most unpopular opinion?
Oh, well, I believe in radical equality. And I think that when you start to see all of us as equal, then we all kind of have to blend in this equal way. That means that a lot of even the initiatives that I drive and run in Pride, you could argue that they're not needed. I still believe they're needed to lift for at-risk youth and all of those types of initiatives. But I believe as adults, we should be lifting everybody up to be just radically equal so that we, in the future, don't have to have those conversations. I'm not saying we don't need them now. I'm saying my dream would be for this radical equity that, you know, we don't need to have those conversations. And quite frankly, crypto and what Web3 can bring in terms of community engagement. We haven't talked about that at all. I did an amazing panel during Pride Month about probably 3 years ago now with the CEO of Sandbox, and I really see the use cases for creating safe spaces for conversations to elevate that equity and just to demystify so many different issues that really cause different kinds of discrimination in the world. And I guess it's quite unpopular what Vitalik Buterin said about don't choose your political leader over their view on crypto because it's not one in, all in. And if people are dismantling movements towards equality, like, marriage equality in states, and there's danger of that. And I have, LGBTIQ plus friends in America who are genuinely afraid of what could happen. I don't want to be political, but, don't have a crypto opinion over a politician. Don't back a politician over your crypto opinion. I agree with Vitalik, and that seems to be intensely unpopular because I don't think that business leaders really should have political opinions, and I try and stay out of it. But I also can't ignore human rights and the people that get left behind, because there are lots of people that get left behind. And I think I got really emotional not so long ago because there are still so many people in jail in countries where it's illegal to be LGBTIQ plus, and we forget about that here where we have our freedoms, and in countries where we do have our freedoms. And I think that to take any form of backward steps terrifies me. So I've probably contradicted myself. My brain works in now, next, and beyond. Beyond, I want us all to be completely free and equal, and for there to be no need to have these conversations. In the now, it makes me emotional that elections could get won and lost, and people could have their total self-interest in crypto and have that attached to their political beliefs. Like, believe what you believe and love crypto completely separately. Because everyone should love crypto. It should be totally bipartisan. Yeah,
for sure. You mentioned just in that, we hadn't really touched on the community building aspect. Perhaps you'd like to give us a little bit of your thoughts on that.
Oh, look. Well, we wouldn't have a podcast. We didn't talk about DAOs, and I've been a bit of a DAO geek. The problem with DAOs is they're just so hard to build and get right. And because I'm an investment committee person, I don't believe in collective thinking. I believe in independent thinking, and I think we need to develop DAOs in a way that he who has they who have most tokens wins votes. I think there needs to be mechanisms that are built more algorithmically that allow for good decisions. So if I think about what we're creating in terms of, we have like a quasi DAO for our investment committee, which we don't talk about, and we all vote, but I really see the groupthink if one person comes in with a really strong opinion. So I still have to have the CIO, overrule, and I've overruled some things that have, done well, and then 2 weeks later the groupthink stops, and so I have to back myself on that. But I think DAOs have this potential to create the really most incredible corporations of the future. I just don't think we're there yet. And I think for community building, look at networks like Cardano and the communities. Leslie, look at your face when I talk about that. And the momentum that you can get supporting community projects in Africa and all of those. I've built off the side of my desk, and maybe I'll get fired for talking about it, but I've named as a conflict that I have an impact investing company called Naomi. And we got rug pulled by Codify going offline. So we were tokenizing impact, and then Codify went offline, which was not fun. And I've spent like a lot of weekends and a lot of my personal savings rebuilding Naomi.WTF as a nouns fork, because I think nouns is one of the most incredible community building tools that we're seeing in the market right now. With those daily auctions. Now, I can't even afford to buy a noun, by the way, but Naomi.WTF has sort of very proudly built a fork, and will always be nouns, but it's got a different type of auction where you can put in a low bid, and that bid will still go to the charity. And then we'll shape it in different ways, but we'll choose charities, or maybe we'll run like a silent auction where the winner of the auction chooses the charity and everybody goes in with them. That's about to launch, and I think that there are so many community generating and building mechanisms in Web3 that we haven't explored. And again, watching these great entrepreneurs build, I'll proudly fast follow. And a friend has built the fork and really helped me do that. There was no DigitalX time, I promise. It was just all done through passion, because what I can do when I can create that auction for a charity of the impact, I can airdrop the tokenized impact. They get an impact token. We all know that we did Project Carbon, which is now Carbon Place at NAB. Whether that's still on the tokenization path or not, that takes a lot. I don't think it is, but it was really intended because tokenization gives that value to, the geeks call it the externalities. If you can do that in impact and be able to measure that impact in a different way, we stop having the arguments about how to measure impact, because it just becomes a fact that you have the token, it's measured, that token has a value. We are so far off that being a thing, but being able to work with other entrepreneurs to start experimenting with those ideas and all go together, I think is super exciting. And we haven't even talked about the marketing opportunities. Like DigitalX built a community token, and we're launching that with our education hub, because I had an AO ball, and the first AO ball, the gas fees were too high. I bought tickets to the tennis, paid for hotel and airfares. The second one I still own, and this year I got free tickets to the tennis, didn't even get airdropped into my wallet, came into my inbox, and I was like, oh my God, this is like the marketing tool of the future. Because my marketing team, I'm not trying to trick people into being part of the DigitalX community. I can offer value that's not even promised and reward loyalty and connection in a whole different way, just through the potential of creative thinking. And, no one from AO Art Ball said, you're going to get free passes to the tennis. I wasn't expecting that. It just got dropped into my inbox. And I think that's phenomenal. Yeah.
The nouns example is really great, right? I remember speaking to Gami, and he was sort of pointing out about, obviously they've got the community is based around sort of extreme sport and skateboarding and all that cool stuff. And you jump online and you see some of their marketing, and it's super cool, right? But they actually go, I remember chatting to him, and he's kind of like going, oh, well, it's like, well, how do you come up with ideas? It's like, well, people just suggest stuff, and if it gets up, it gets up. But then you kind of go, oh, well, then what happens? But then you actually go and see like this awesome skate park that they use some of their money to build in, Brazil.
Yeah.
Like it's an amazing skate park in an underprivileged area, and it's doing real world impact.
Yeah, totally.
Community of people who are interested in that cool stuff.
And it's so inspiring. And I built the fork because then I can create the impact token. And I really wanted something out there. And then, what if I can get Naomi to a point where actually I've got enough money to be able to support that skate park, right? And we partner with them. I can't afford a noun, but we, work and operate in that in different ways. And it was actually at the Blockchain APAC event. You talked about the awards, the top 50, but it was actually at that event where I saw him present, and then we were on a round table together, and I was like, and I was sitting next to Rob Waugh, actually. He was my work wife at NAB, and he's supported me with Naomi. And, Naomi is a through the years passion project. It's survived 6 years or something through NAB, and was set up on Christmas morning when I just got sick of not being able to tokenize impact many years ago. And because of the, Codify going offline, I was just stuck. I was so stuck. And then he started speaking, and I just sat back and I said to Rob, could that just be the Naomi pivot? Like, forget spinning our wheels. Like, can I just do that? He was like, just do it. Yeah. Right. And then I worked out, a way to do it with friends and supporters, and it's been cool. That's good. So you were trying your business ideas. Was Rob testing out some of his house music on you? Mate, I think that, I know I just used a mate, but and maybe we're not mates, but so I'm going to claim this. That the first time he ever DJ'd was my Pride party at NAB, because I was co-chair of Pride, and we had a massive party at the Ivy, and he begged me to DJ. And in fact, what I do remember, he had a male nanny, and it was his male nanny who was the DJ, and he hijacked the decks, and that was his first ever DJ appearance. And then his first solo was our NAB private party the next year at the NAB Pride party, and then we did a few sneaky ones in COVID for Pride, beaming it across Australia in his lounge room, allegedly. I'm sure there were no restrictions then. So absolutely, I'm claiming credit for his entire DJ career, just as he claims credit for my entire crypto career, and everything, you know, I'm claiming credit for his DJ career.
It's awesome. Yeah, we didn't, he was very proud of his DJ career, and we should have brought up, because when we had a chat with him, he brought up right at the end, I'm like, oh, that was the gold, why didn't you tell us that right at the beginning?
Yeah.
And we might have to check these facts with Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you should fact check, because I'm right, yes. and 100% right.
Checked, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? Like, I wasn't meaning to cut off, by the way. I just thought. No.
I think from my point of view, that what has been lost in 2022 with all of us, you know, we all need to pay our rent, and we all need to. It's just that focus on the social impact part of the business, and you know, that, you know, I know when I look at my long-term outlook, you know, I really want to make sure that we're using this technology for good, because we're kind of at a fork in the road, right? We could use it to do like everything the same way we've always done, or we can actually use it for real change in society, real equity, you know, real sort of connections with global communities. And I think, or we can just issue T-bills, and not criticising that. I think it's a killer use case, but it's not really changing the world, right? It's not reallocating capital. It's not moving capital from one place that can't go to another. You know, the original tokenization project I wanted to do that I never did was the low carbon shared portfolio at NAB. It was a vertical slice of the renewable energy. It was to get more money to invest in more renewables. We started looking at it at community, Bendigo Bank on the community. That model that we built then, and I should say I built, is now Mondo Power. It was just never tokenized. That's a decentralized community energy model where we created the formula, whether it still exists or not, that the community, the shelf life of the solar assets and the battery storage can generate investor returns over 10 years, but it has a 20-year life. So for the last 10 years, the community owns those assets, pays less for their power, and has a better quality of life, and then you can do it all over again.
Yep.
That's what we can really be using these rails for, and I hope that we all remember that.
Yeah,
while we're doing Bitcoin ETFs and you know, focusing on the big end of town, I think there's a real opportunity to do good things. And
there was actually something I did want to ask you. So we mentioned Rob Wall, but there's some other. Seemed to be a core of people. So NAB was actually doing a bunch of stuff. Like there was you, obviously Rob, Drew Bradford, and I think they've still got a team, but you've kind of all gone off to do your own thing. But there was a core there. So I mean, the bank was interested in it, but you kind of couldn't quite get up and running. You kind of guys had to step back and go and do it yourself. I guess what's my question here? It's really like going, why did you guys all step back? Like, was there something in the bank that kind of just stopped you from doing it, or it was just the fact that if you left, you could just be more nimble and agile to do things? Or was the bank just kind of not quite getting it yet?
Yeah, I think we'd all have a different story around that, because there's a sequence of you know, how it all went down. I think I kind of left. I mean, it's very public that you know, if you go through and look at the maths, I started interviewing at DigitalX. You know, I just had a bad day at the bank. It's really hard to pioneer, and you know, I was kind of like, I was doing Project Carbon. It was a CEO project, and then Ross McEwen was just a legend. Like, we'd get on these meetings with the 4 other banks, and he would drive it, and then someone would just go, oh yeah, but it doesn't matter what he says, I'm not going to give you that money. And then you just have to fight all of the time. And DigitalX needed a CEO, and I said no so many times to the interview, and I just had one of those bad days. I won't, you know, I'm not dissing on the bank. I love National Australia Bank. It was just one bad day, and then I realised that my love of crypto was so much bigger, and there was an opportunity to take that strategy that we'd written, a couple of us, for the bank, and pursue it externally. And that was really how I started interviewing. It's quite public that the market was like at an all-time high. And I don't know if people remember this, but I was on a panel somehow because of Project Atom, which is like, literally people don't know that I just wanted to do the syndicated loan, and I was working with Consensus and Claudio really closely, and David Gall at the time, and he's leaving now, said, I want you to collaborate. But he said to me that I could do the project if I got Patrick Wright and Sergey at the time to support it. So I had all of the support that he thought was impossible. And then he wanted the partnership. So we went to the RBA. And the RBA said, we can't do it with just one bank. You need to collaborate. It needs to be everybody. So come back to us if everybody will support you. And so that's when the collaboration came in. And Sophie's such a legend at CommBank. Like, she'll be in the top 10 because she just said yes. We had to go back to the drawing board about what the other side of Atom would be. And then Perpetual literally was Rob War's friend, and he wasn't even part of that project. This was pre him being involved, but he got Perpetual to get interested because he saw the opportunity. And so all of us together, I don't know how much of this is public, I hope I don't get anyone in trouble. And then so we collaborated together and workshopped it and built Project Atom. And there's so much that needs to be done for that. And then I ended up being on this payments panel with Michelle Bullock now. She's like the RBA governor. Like, back then I wasn't even a payments person. But through that, I had to understand that atomic settlement. So I vicariously became a payments person. And then someone asked me a question in question time about crypto, and I was a DeFi geek. And I didn't even think about it. Corporate affairs in the bank, I made a flippant comment, which I genuinely believe that I was very worried about the hypothecation, and I felt the leverage was getting out of control, and that's what caused the GFC. And then AFR was almost like, was the front page of the overnight, never been on the front page for anything good. You know, NAB executive, I wasn't even an executive, I don't think, calls crypto the cause of the next GFC. It was like, oh, I didn't say that. And I was like, maybe I did, kind of. And so the corporate affairs department had to get it all unwound and everything like that. But actually it went in the paper on page like 72 or something. And you can go back, because in an uncanny way, that was within a week of the top of the market. Yeah, so when I joined DigitalX with my team, and that when everything did go shits up, like it's hard to, in a new job, to get credibility in a team. They thought I was a TradFi person. And so that sort of rung true. But you can see that when I started, the market crashed, and that was really bloody hard. Yeah. And then I think what happened inside a NAB was you can't get that political sway when the dark, the guy who brought me into NAB used to call them the dark and evil forces. When the dark and evil forces get their hands on risk, and all that's very hard. So I don't know the exact story of what's going on with the projects. They're now, as a yoga teacher, committed to no gossip. However, I do know that it's a lot easier on the outside to find people that believe and get support and carry those projects forward. And I do know it's very hard to pioneer inside those organisations. So that was a really long way of saying I don't know.
What do you think the pathway is for real world assets and the use with cryptocurrencies? Yeah,
I think Patrick Wright won't mind me quoting him that my first challenge at the bank was, he described it as a hammer looking for a nail. And I feel that, what happened was, during this whole time of flux at the bank, AgriDigital had just released their tokens, and I was at a Women in Business and Finance lunch, and Lambo had taken me, Steve Lambert had brought me into the bank, and Emma Weston was on a panel, and she said, oh, we're really struggling to get traction with our idea because the banks say yes, but you get the willing and able at the top, and then you get the yes at the bottom, and then you've got permafrost in the middle. And I will swear now, I sat next to Lambo and I said, did you hire me to be permafrost? And he said, absolutely. I said, fuck off. And I got up and I went down to Emma Weston at the end of the panel, and I said, I'm permafrost at NAB and I want to help you. Yeah. I've never met you before. So we went and had a coffee, and I got to understand what she was doing, and I spent lots of time with them because I was like, this is it. Like, I love this. And then It was a trade working capital conversation. Between Christmas and New Year, I just joined the bank and my boss was on holidays and they sent me a white paper on how to fund agri-digital to read. And I said, why would you fund agri-digital like that? I don't mark up white papers. But honestly, if it were me, this is how I would do it. Yeah. And because I used to be an index arb program trading, futures trading, I'm Sharia compliant as well. I created a model, which was, I called it the shared value funding ecosystem, because I was like, if you can collateralize the ag commodity using the token, then it's a really simple futures trading formula. It's not even financing, because you can program into the smart contract the financial transaction, which by the way is a digital security, because I'm taking the smarts in a loan contract, reshaping it into an algo. And that the head of trade working capital said, do you mind if I take that model? I said, don't get me fired. The bank will hate it, because look, I've just completely, because you could see that formula disintermediated credit, because I've got the look through to the asset. You know, I'll tell the story a bit better in a sec. So that never got off the ground. And someone told me that it was crazy. And then that person, at the same time, they slowed my projects down. And the guy that brought me into the bank, at Bendigo Bank, I'd sponsored Earth Hour. And I was really bored, and I went over to Lambo again and I said, well, now I'm really bored, so I don't know why you hired me. My projects aren't keeping me busy, but WWF need money for a hackathon. The least you can do is let me sponsor the hackathon. I want 30 grand. He said, you can't have 30, but you can have X. I won't disclose WWF donations. I realised that was a bit of a trap. So I went and sponsored this hackathon to entertain myself, and Claudio from Consensus was the other sponsor. We both judged it, and then this impact investing platform called Impactio was born out of the meeting of the minds of me, Reese and Claudio. Then as we were doing all the hackathons, the person who told me the model was stupid, I invited them to the hackathon, and then we went to Cyro a little bit later, and Cyro used agri-digital as a use case. And we walked out of the meeting, we went and had a beer, and he said to me, you know that model you told me about that I told you was stupid? And he said, you should keep working on that. That's really good. And then we were walking home from the pub, and I had one of those moments where I stopped in the street and I couldn't think of one asset that I couldn't tokenize, and I couldn't think of one cash flow that I couldn't fund, and I couldn't think of something that I couldn't do that collateralization formula over, not one financial, not a derivative, and I went through everything in the bank of my brain that I could think of. And by the time that I got home, I was like, oh my God, that formula is the new formula of finance, and that is what I should do forever. Now, am I slightly down a different path right now? Yes and no, because in REWAC, we're looking for those opportunities, in REWACs, I should say, but the world is not there yet. Because we don't have the trust in the token. We don't have the general knowledge of the fact that this is just a simple formula and it's all about the validation. But the heart of the DigitalX strategy is actually validating digital assets. And that was just a really long way of saying that I believe that all funding will be DeFi. It's just that credibility. We've got to really think about the rehypothecation. There's nothing that I'm talking about now that has not been built. It's the alchemy of how we put it together. You know, I love building things, but I can't code. But what I can do is work with geniuses like Nick Addison did Project Atom with no one's ever heard of that guy. He went and found that hash time lock. Like the whole sweet spot of that CBDC project no one's ever talked about was the atomic transaction between the syndicated loan and the CBDC that he wrote. All of those things that we can build off now, that if you look at what we're doing in REWACs, we're using the ERC 4626. He was the one that told me about that because he was working at MStable, and MStable were using it to build a yield-bearing token. Don't even know if MStable survived the crypto crash, but that technology is game changer because I can now put pools of pools inside a structure, which is better than the current fund admin that I have. I just can't prove it to ASIC. I can't prove it to you until I do all this reconciliation work. And so the ASX was so right, the work starts now. And then the long-winded answer to your question is it's not a hammer looking for a nail. It's a retooling of all financial rails, and there is no financial transaction in 2030, 2040 that will be transparent and credible that won't be decentralized in that way and validated in that way. And my only job will be as a validator, and hopefully Naomi will be doing some good things with impact tokens.
That is quite
a collector of tokens.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an impressive answer.
I think
these losses pretty much DigitalX's gain then.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a very interesting day if someone like the London Clearing House would accept Bitcoin as eligible collateral.
Oh, look, I mean, but then, and it's still so volatile, right? Like I just need to keep saying it over and over again. And, I don't know how much. So on the day that we launched the ETF, there's a whole lot of things that have to happen. And we have to over collateralize to do there's a different settlement flow. So, and the fund cannot leverage, will not hypothecate. There's just do not pass go, do not collect $200. And so I had to call an over collateralization ratio, and they had a max. And I said, I want the max. And if looks could kill, because I'd already told the market maker the low end, then my team, I would be dead. I was like, no, I stuck to my guns, and we call it touching cloth in trading. We just like ended on that line because it's so volatile, and like we just have to remember that if we do things like that, just that over collateralization piece needs to be. You need to think, what is the ratio? And then I'm going to double it, and then I'm going to get the death stare. But I see a world where that happens. And by the way, my passionate belief is there's an I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, there's an inverse relationship between risk and price. The higher the Bitcoin price goes, the lower the volatility, because that's the nature of volatility. That's just maths in derivatives trading. So, I see a world where, we all want Bitcoin. I didn't have the outrageous $1 million call. I didn't make that up. I think I got called outrageous for saying 150K last October. But the outrageous $1 million, $2 million calls, the price volatility at that point will not be the way it is now, because it'll be a mature asset, and then we'll be in a completely different world.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for that to happen. But I'll still be punting altcoins.
That's amazing. Well, we've got to finish off then a bit more about you. So we talked on the Rob's DJing. But we need to find. I feel like there's some more about Lisa we haven't heard yet. Something else in there that we.
Oh, I'm so boring. I
don't think so. We've heard a lot of cool stuff today.
I think I'm very boring. It's really my yoga is my just that fascination with. And I guess it's gone off on tangents of just that. I went to Peru for my last holiday and went marching in the mountains and. All of the First Nations wisdom, which is the same as yoga. And, I really think that just this whole connection to who we are, and the further away from sort of the ego, the better. But I just think that's boring. It's not like, it's just my...
There's a whole other podcast.
There's a whole other podcast. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think paddleboarding and yoga is all I've got, and walking the dog. Yeah, and travel and scuba dive and all of those things. But
there it is, and scuba diving.
The last time I went scuba diving, it was like a really volatile time in the market. I was down at Manly and I snuck off for the day. And
just disappeared underwater for a few
and then
hours.
I've never popped up before in my life, and I almost blew a lung because I just lost it. I was thinking about something else, popped up, and so I'm a little bit scared to go back. I'm like. Yeah, I totally. I was like, wow, like scuba diving is not for the faint-hearted when something goes a little bit wrong, and I was fine. But
how deep were you at the time?
Well, that was the problem. We weren't that deep, and it was quite cold. So I realised afterwards I made the rookie error. I put I didn't want to wear the hoodie under my chin because it felt like it was choking me. So I wore it the wrong way, and I didn't realise it was filling up with air underneath. So my buoyancy was just all wrong. And then as you get shallower, if you got a bubble of air somewhere, I learnt that the hard way. It's never happened before because I usually don't have a hoodie, but just for that day it was pretty cold. So but I do love my scuba diving, and I don't need to sound more interesting. I am boring. Yeah.
We don't believe you.
Not at all.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. I mean, this is one of the great things about we've got so many people who are really influential in the crypto scene in Australia to come along. You know what life was before you sort of jumped into crypto, and everyone who's into crypto is not here by accident. They've chosen to do it because they kind of learn it, they've seen it, they're like, this is where we want to be. But still, when you talk to people outside of crypto, there's still maybe this, you know how we kind of have the feeling of inevitability. A lot of people outside are just like still kind of write it up as this passing phase, which we know is crazy. And they don't really see the caliber of people who are in the space and working in it. And you're another great example of the people who've seen the light, so to speak, and have come along. So thanks for joining us and giving us a lot of cool stuff to think about. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you guys do too, because obviously, having the vibrant ecosystem in Australia allows us to do what we're doing. Otherwise, we'd probably be just selling shares.
Yeah. All right. So then, one prediction. Who's taken number one in the most influential list this year?
I'm going with Chalmers this year. I reckon he's lifted his game. He did a big blockchain lunch. I had the honour of sitting opposite him because of my role at stepping up into chair. So I think he'll take number one this year. I think it'll be the politicians will win, and I think Sophie should still be in the top 10. Oh. And I'll just cheer everybody on with. With support and
All right, I'm going Lisa Wade then.
Lisa Wade has my vote too.
Oh, thank you.
And Lisa, just before we conclude, how do people get in touch with you?
I'm on LinkedIn just as me, and hopefully I'll pop up somewhere as me. And I think on Twitter I'm like at DigiX CEO for my DigitalX. We post on the Bitcoin ETF every morning. I think LinkedIn's probably the easiest way. And, I can give you my email address. It's pretty easy, lisa@digitalx.com. I reply, please don't spam me.
Too late.
Not giving you my phone number.
Fair enough. All right, thanks. That was awesome. Hey, thanks, Lisa. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Independent Reserve, the trusted cryptocurrency exchange.